Well, things finally feel like they're back to normal. There's fights this week. There's all sorts of fights. There's boxing, there's MMA, and of course, there's Tough Enough, who I'm going to get into with now with Justin Bernard. Justin, I want to call you uh, an octagon announcer, but that doesn't actually, fit everything because you're doing the UFC BJJ. You're an international man of mystery. You're going on to the other side of the world with Road to the UFC. What is your title? Like, what should I call you? Maybe just Justin Bernard.
I don't even know. Let's take a vote and see what America thinks. I think just announcer, like Cher or Drake, maybe, just one
I
thing
like
because
that. I mean,
we're in we're in the pit.
maybe we could just call you Justin.
That'll work. I'll take that.
I haven't even asked you what the official title is with Tough Enough because you're not just a handsome man who gets on the microphone. You're like involved in the inner workings and how the sausage is made with Tough Enough, which is, if you don't know, Tough Enough, one of the most historic promotions, I think, in all of mixed martial arts. Very rich amateur history. Now doing pro cards, hybrid pro and amateur cards, which you can watch this Thursday on UFC Fight Pass. Do you have a title with Tough Enough?
Just whatever it needs at the moment, right? Marketing, graphics design, social media guy, MC, voiceover guy, video, go get video content, editor. I'll do whatever we got to do. Apparel designer, signage, whatever you need, we'll get it done. It was funny because I was looking at the 2016 10-year challenge, and I went to go get some footage for Tough Enough. And man, has it been a while. I came on board in 2010, and just to help the Meyer family because they gave me a platform to do what I do, and I was just willing to do whatever they needed help with, and that's what I've been doing for the last 15 years now, 16 years.
Yeah. I mean, 2010, I mean, maybe I'm putting our age into perspective here, but 2010 feels like it's a couple years ago, let alone a decade and a half ago. So
Yeah,
you've been
crazy.
in it for a
It's
minute.
wild. Yeah, and just did it because I loved it, and was very, very fortunate to be able to be here at this point in my life with MMA. So pretty exciting. Get to work with you, and we get to work this Thursday, and I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the card. The final Tough Enough was supposed to feature the MMA debut of Smila Sandel, which by the way, if you want to talk about problems in appearances that don't look like she might be a problem, this is a little lady that will beat your freaking ass. Like she's a problem. Like she's the last person you might expect to be the most dangerous person in the bar, but I think she's not even old enough to go into a bar.
Yeah, when I got into mixed martial arts and I understood, what MMA was about, you're bringing all the styles together, and I told myself if I ever got into fighting, the last person I would want to fight is a Muay Thai fighter, just strictly for the excruciating pain you get from strikes. And perfect example, Edson Barboza. Anybody who takes an Edson Barboza fight, you know, big praise to you. Smila has been putting people away, well seasoned past her age, right? She's been putting away big names in ONE FC, and youngest champ ever, two-time champ Muay Thai in one of the biggest stages in striking and Muay Thai and really combat sports. And she's making her debut. What can we
Yeah,
expect? Who knows?
yeah, no, absolutely. And you talk about Muay Thai, and I think people don't realize, when you watch fights, on television, I don't think there's a little bit of a disassociative factor of what is happening. When you watch a Muay Thai fight, though, in person, it sounds like the most disgusting thing on the planet. The way they, crack the body, oh my God. And she is definitely one that can make her opponents make some sounds that kind of make you squirm in your seat.
Exactly. And look, there's people who have turned down this fight. Shout out to Miranda Barber for taking this. And, she's a veteran and she's walking into there, and taking this fight on. And what about we're gonna see. I'm really excited about this one. This is really exciting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Another person that's on this card that I'm very excited about is Hanato Canuto, one of my favorite grapplers, if not the most entertaining grappler I've ever seen. I've watched both of his mixed martial arts fights. Haven't seen a lot of grappling.
It's the first thing you would expect to see in his fight, but
Right.
no, all ending in TKO. Uh, Painful strikes. I mean, his last fight, soccer kick to the body, a la Khalil Roundtree. Just
Yeah.
Hanato Canuto, world class grappler, striking people and putting the people away. Uh, just another
I, y-
striking match.
I don't know if he has just been, you know, censored in a way with grappling, but now that he gets to hit people, it's like he chooses to. So you mentioned the soccer kick to the body. It's happened in both of his fights. I don't recall any fighter ever going 2 for 2 in pro MMA fights where he soccer kicked the body in both fights.
I look at this as brain surgeons who are the top of their game that decide to leave it and go and start a band. And because that's what they love, right? The last thing they probably want to do is brain surgery, but yet they're the best in their class at it. And here we are witnessing something completely different. And that band goes on tour, right? That's Hanato Canuto, in my opinion, selling out arenas, but yet, you know, he's, if this goes to the ground, it's over much quicker. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's the question if someone's going to make him call upon that grappling at this point because he's had the opportunity I think to take the back of both of his opponents, put in a rear naked choke, but he's like, nah, I'll choose blunt force trauma.
And he does it quick. It's as if he's got, like Shelby says, he's double parked outside, right? Like he's got places to go. He's got other things to do, So,
Yeah,
what can we expect on Thursday? I don't know. He never ceases to surprise us.
yeah. Tell me more about what we should expect on Thursday. I mean, we could sit here all day and talk about every single fight, but what are the biggest highlights we haven't hit yet on this tough enough 151 card?
To say this card is stacked is an understatement. We just talked about Smila and Hanato, and we haven't even gotten to our rising amateur champion and Dana's right hand man Salahuddin Everett. He's undefeated, 2-0, looking for 3-0, and he's been a finishing machine as well. And right after that fight, we got the co-main event. So, a pretty stacked and deep card before we even get to the co-main event. Co-main event, you got Kai Kamaka, uh, PFL, Bellator, UFC veteran, uh, making his return to the cage and taking on Michael Lima at the last minute. He's had opponents fall out. This is the nature of the sport. Kai has always stayed in place, ready for whoever we throw at him next. That guy's a gamer, and he puts on a show every single time. So, I'm excited to see that.
I feel bonded to Kai Kamaka because what he did with Diego Brandao last year literally made me throw away a suit, Justin. Like it was drenched in sweat and blood. And I don't know if we're going to have to call the Tough Enough commentary booth like officially the splash zone. But if Kai Kamaka has anything to say about it, it might be a 4D experience.
We'll make sure you have plastic ponchos standing by so that you don't get wet.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, Kai's always great. And let's talk about the main event.
Main event, man. This speaks to the future stars of MMA. Here we have two undefeated guys, Tyshawn Williams, D1 wrestler, and coming up against Habibullah Azizov, 10-0, 7-0 meets 10-0, undefeated. You know the saying, someone's O's got to go, and it's a collision course, right? An immovable object meets a unstoppable force, and we're going to see it in the featherweight division uh, Thursday. Exciting.
Did you just tap into some pro wrestling Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant right there? Because I think that was a reference.
Is it? Which one?
Yeah, that the unstoppable force and the immovable object. WrestleMania 3,
Oh,
1987,
nice.
Pontiac Silverdome.
Okay. I took that from
I might be a lapsed pro wrestling fan.
Heath Ledger from Dark Knight. So
Okay, well, I think they stole it from Gorilla Monsoon, but, I
I'll
digress. You
I
mentioned
trust you.
you mentioned the future stars of MMA. That's been the tagline, of Tough Enough, and, I think about what a promotion like Tough Enough is supposed to do, what these live events are really doing on Fight Pass for these athletes, and that's getting them ready for the world famous Octagon, and there's no better place to do it than in Las Vegas, Nevada.
It's damn near close, the doorstep and welcome mat to the UFC. I mean, it can't get any closer than that. And then you got Sean Shelby in the audience, always, front row.
Mm.
We're always trying to look for him for
Well, I mean, you talk
placements so
about
that
UFC. Well, sorry to cut you off. You talk about UFC staffers. Sal, who we briefly touched on, he works, for the UFC. I think he brings out half the audience. Like the guy who takes the garbage out comes out to see Sal fight. So if you're on this card wanting to raise some eyebrows of UFC heads, they're going to be in the building.
at least half the audience. Dana comes out, the staff comes out, everybody comes out. His friends and family. Who doesn't love a Sal Everett fight, right? He's also entertaining. Let's not forget about that. He's got the build of a superstar. And I mean, when I see him fight, sometimes I kind of see shades of Anderson Silva. Sometimes I see shades of Nick Diaz. He's got the height. He takes full advantage of it. He's finished people standing up on the ground. What better mix to see the future stars of MMA out of South?
Yeah, and, like, what is most, impressive, I think, about Sal is, like, you put him on his back and you think, "Oh, maybe the violence is not as bad. I've got the man down." No. He's super dangerous with blunt force trauma, with submissions off of his back. He's ultra impressive, and I can't wait to see him, coming up here on Thursday.
And a great human being as well. What a class act! Every time he takes the mic post fight, he always shows appreciation. Great guy. In and out of the cage, represents the future stars and the UFC top tier.
No, absolutely. And then we get to see the great Justin Bernard.
Yeah, he's all right. He's all right. But we got you on the call. What a great formula collectively. I think the premium viewing experience on Fight Pass at the Pearl. If you've ever seen a UFC fight, that was my first UFC fight at the Pearl. I saw Chris Lieben fight over there. The best viewing experience for a fan. And here we are back there for Tough Enough 151 kicking off on what an epic MMA UFC weekend. We're now entering a new era and we get to be the opening act for that week. So it's pretty exciting. I'm excited to be working with you, Cage Side.
Yeah, you mentioned the Pearl, by the way. That is my favorite venue in all of combat sports, and it's one that is sneaky because it's a theater, And I remember the last Tough Enough that I worked in that room. I kind of looked around for a brief moment, Justin, and I was like, "Wait, are we supposed to be here? This is too nice of a room for me. Like I get to work an event in this room, and you mentioned the history. I watched Martin Kampman and Jake Ellenberger there in an Ultimate Fighter finale. There's so much MMA history there, and it's really cool to see Tough Enough be in that room and let the future stars of MMA make some history themselves.
It's exciting. It's all the fixings for an epic night, and I can't wait.
Oh, I like that word, fixins. I might be thinking maybe too much about Thanksgiving dinner. I like all those fixings as well, but, you're right. All of the core elements to a great fight night, are on this card. It's Tough Enough 151. You can check it out this Thursday on UFC Fight Pass. As Justin mentioned, it kicks off a great week of combat sports in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. If you can't be there in person, first off, I'm sorry. You're going to miss your opportunity to be in the splash zone. But you're also going to miss a kickoff to a phenomenal fight week. And it's kicking off the year. We are officially in 2026. What can we expect from Tough Enough here in the new year?
A lot more fights, I'll tell you that. We had a really great meeting with the UFC a couple of days ago and had really great conversations. And it looks like we're getting a lot of support from UFC as a partner. They've been a great partner since we've been with them in the beginning, coming out of the pandemic. And, we're really excited. And, we're excited for the fans as well, because we know that you're going to see some really exciting events, rising talent right here where it all begins, the feature stars of MMA.